Storytelling session. I am Suan from World Scientific Education, and I will be your host for today. Today, you will hear stories from the book The Malay Annals, Attack of the Garfish and Other Adventures. Bringing us the stories today is the author of the book, Hidayah Amin. So sit tight and let's have a great evening. Before we begin, we would like to tell you that Hidayah has come today most happy to answer any questions you may have about the book. If there's anything that puzzles you while you listen to the stories, you can just type your question in the comments and she will answer you at the Q&A session after every story is told. After today, the recording of this storytelling session will be posted online, so you can come back and re-watch it if you want to hear the stories again. The book that we are going to hear from today, The Malay Annals, is part of World Scientific Education's Pop Lit for Kids series, which reimagines classic tales from Asia and the West into easy-to-read stories. The most well-loved stories from around the world have been adapted into a form that will excite and entertain children everywhere. Readers can embark on new adventures with famous, beloved storybook characters. Let's watch a video introduction to the Pop Lit for Kids series now. Wow, doesn't that look so exciting? In addition to the interesting stories and beautiful pictures, the books come to life with augmented reality features, giving you an enhanced experience that you'll never forget. These AR features are easily accessed through the free SnapLearn app, which you can download on your Apple or Android phones. Let's watch a video to see how it works.
I am the king of Palembang. I am a descendant of Raja Suran, who descended from Alexander the Great. Hello, Junior Sultan. Antonyms are words with the opposite meaning. What word on this page is an antonym for poor? Now that you have read about Sang Nilai Utama and Badang, can you help answer these questions? What about Tumasek intrigued Sang Nilai Utama? That's correct.
Now, it's the time that all of us have been waiting for. Let's welcome our storyteller for today, Hidayah. She will introduce herself and tell us the story, how Singapore got its name.
Hi everyone, I'm Hidayah Amin and I'm the author of this book, The Malay Annals, Attack of the Garfish and Other Adventures. So a little bit about myself. Some of you may have known me from my other books. I have written 8 non-fiction books and 8 children's books since 2010. And the latest non-fiction book that has recently won the NUS Singapore History Prize. And The Malay Annals is the latest children's book that I have written. Okay, so are you excited to listen to two stories from this book? Well, I am. I'm quite excited to read it to you. So the first story that we are going to that you're going to listen to is how Singapore got its name. Okay, do you know what Singapura is? Or is it a person? Is it what is Singapura? So Singapura is actually the old name for Singapore. Okay, before we start, these are two characters that appear in the story. Of course, one of them is Sang Nila Utama. Who is Sang Nila Utama? Okay, so Sang Nila Utama, he was the king of Palembang. Palembang is a city in Indonesia, and he descended from Alexander the Great. And he was also given the name Sri Tribhuwana. We know him as Sang Nila Utama, but he was also known as Lord of the Three Worlds. That's in Sanskrit, Sri Tribhuwana. Okay, and we also have Nahoda. Nahoda is a Malay name for skipper of a boat. Okay, so Nahoda, he was the one who was responsible to bring Sang Nila Utama over to Singapore. Okay, let's start. How Singapore got its name. The king of Palembang, Sang Nila Utama, was married to one Sri Bani, the daughter of Permaisuri Iskandar Shah, the ruler of the kingdom of Bintan, present day Bintan Island. One day, the royal couple decided to go on a holiday. Sang Nila Utama's mother-in-law suggested that they go to nearby Tanjung Bemban, present day Batam Island. They were expertly navigated by the skipper Nahoda, who knew the seas like the back of his hand. Sang Nila Utama departed with his wife, mother-in-law, two prime ministers, Indira Bupala and Arya Bupala, as well as an entourage of courtiers. On Tanjung Bemban, one Sri Bene spent her time collecting corals, seashells, and flowers, while Sang Nila Utama went hunting for mouse deer with his men. As Sang Nila Utama was chasing after a mouse deer, he came to a grass patch with a big stone. He climbed on the stone to look for the mouse deer, and that was when he saw a most mesmerizing sight. What is that place with the most beautiful sand? Sang Nila Utama pointed to the island north of Tanjung Bemban. That is the island of Temasek, Your Highness, answered his man. Sang Nila Utama was intrigued and ordered Indira Bupala to prepare a boat for him to sail to Temasek. He departed, accompanied by his wife and a smaller entourage. It was a relatively smooth passage to Temasek. Suddenly, in the middle of the sea, the skies darkened and the waves grew bigger. Boom! Thunder cracked the sky like a giant whip, and lightning flashed menacingly as if competing in a chorus. The boat rocked violently. Heavy rains caused the water in the boat to rise. Even the experienced Nahoda was frightened. He ordered his men to throw heavy boxes and items into the sea. Nevertheless, the boat seemed to be sinking. Your Highness, this is not normal. It looks like the island is rebelling. You need to throw away your crown. Nahoda pleaded with Sang Nila Utama. Why? What does my crown have to do with the sea? Maybe Temasek doesn't welcome foreign visitors. Please, Your Highness, this is our only hope. Out of desperation, Sang Nila Utama flung his crown into the turbulent waters. As if the heavens could read his thoughts, the sea calmed down and the dark clouds disappeared. The bow of the boat tilted up slowly before making a full recovery. Everyone was relieved that they were not in danger anymore and could now make their way to Temasek. Sang Nila Utama murmured, how strange. The royal boat sailed easily towards the shore of Temasek. Sang Nila Utama and his entourage stepped on the beach. The white sand glistened in the sun. It felt soft and light, like feathers in a pillow. Sang Nila Utama felt a tingling sensation when he touched the sand. The atmosphere of the island felt magical. Perhaps the terrible storm was like a veil to prevent evildoers from entering the island, he thought. After the ordeal at sea, the entourage rested on the shore while Sang Nila Utama brought some of his men to explore the island. They ventured further into the forested area beyond the beach. Suddenly, Sang Nila Utama noticed a strange animal in front of him. The animal had thick reddish yellow skin, black hair, and white chest hair. It was as big as a wild boar. When the animal realized that it was being watched by a group of humans, it ran off at lightning speed. Enthralled by the majestic animal, Sang Nila Utama asked his men, "What was that animal?" We are not sure, Your Highness. It might be a lion. It was later reported that Temasek had many tigers roaming the island. Perhaps the animal which Sang Nila Utama had seen was a tiger. As Sang Nila Utama and his men had a fleeting look at the animal, they could have mistaken it for a lion. After exploring Temasek, Sang Nila Utama decided that he would make Temasek his new home. Temasek had lush vegetation, plentiful fresh water, and helpful inhabitants of Orang Selat, a group of sea nomads. Sang Nila Utama was confident that he could rule the island with fairness and turn it into a flourishing kingdom. From now onwards, this island will be known as Singapura, the Lion City, and I am the king of Singapura. Sang Nila Utama ruled Singapura for 48 years before passing away. He was buried at the foot of Bukit Larangan, present day Fort Canning Hill.
Wow, what an exciting story. And now it's come to the time for Q&A. If anyone has any questions about the story, you can just post your questions in the comments and Hidayah will be most happy to answer all those questions. But Hidayah, maybe in the meantime, while everyone is thinking of questions, there are some that I have. So, we talk about the lion, how Sang Nila Utama saw the lion. How is the lion related to the name Singapura? Why do we always say that the lion resulted in this name?
Okay, if because as you can gather from the story, he saw this animal, and
Mm-hmm.
which was it could be because he saw it very at a short glance, and before the animal ran off. So uh, it could have been a tiger because there were many tigers on our island.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't any lions because lions don't really roam around, Malaya and Southeast Asia. So it the maybe the tiger was mistaken for a lion because from afar they look alike, and so he
Mm.
said, "Hey, this majestic animal." So remember, before coming to Singapore, he had all the difficulties. The he had to throw away his crown. There was
Yeah,
thunderstorm.
that's so
Oh, yeah,
sad.
so it's very drama, right? So he said, "Wow, this must be a
Yeah.
very magical place." So he
Mm.
decided to name it Singapura. Singa means lion in Malay. It's
Ah,
actually Sanskrit, yeah. And Pura means city. So
ah,
Singapura, the lion
yes.
city. So that's how we got the name.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
such an interesting link. And we have a question from Chris CJ.
Mhm.
Chris CJ asks, it says that it's an interesting story and asks, is this story in the Malay Annals real? Yes, actually, that's a question I have too. Is this
Okay,
real?
so you see, the Malay Annals, in that's the English translation of Sejarah Melayu. Sejarah Melayu means the history of the Malays. So
Mm-hmm.
throughout all these years, it's being documented. Like all these stories are being documented in this document called Sejarah Melayu. So yes, they are, yes and no, because a lot of it deals with, like, about the country, about the kings, about people who live
Mm,
there. But most of this, throughout the years, some of it are being told like by oral tradition. So some
mm,
facts may be a little bit embellished, or, for instance, later when we read our second story, actually in the Malay Annals, the boy in the story, there's no name to the boy. They didn't know the name for the boy. But throughout the years, when you tell the stories again, so the boy
mm.
became known as Hang Nadim. So
Ah,
yes, so the stories, they are a historical document of Malay history during the 15th century onwards. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Okay, that's so interesting. So they are historic is a historical
Mm,
document. The Malay Annals is a
yes.
historical document, but
Mm,
maybe just as generations and generations of people told the stories, some of the details also got changed along the way. Or
yes. Yeah.
and then that is the stories that we have today. But even then, it has so many exciting details. I'm actually quite happy that we have all these details as part of our
Yeah.
history. And okay, maybe we can just go to Noramia's question first because it's more related to what you talked about just now. Noramia asks, how old was the boy that you mentioned just now, Hang Nadim? How old was
Oh,
he
okay. Maybe this I will answer in the second story.
in the
But
second
I think
story?
there's yeah. I think there is this story, right? There's this question.
Uh,
Lion and tiger.
yes, from Chris also. There's a lion and a tiger on Singapore's coat of arms. So what do they stand for? So today we heard
Okay.
about how the lion relates to Singapore, but how about the tiger?
Okay. As you all know, Singapura was part of Malaya. Okay, we were
Mm-hmm.
all part of the same, and Malaya is the old name for Malaysia. So, and the coat of arms for Singapore, actually, if you look at it, there's a tiger and there's a lion. Okay,
Mm.
so this lion represents Singapore, as in Singapura, the lion city, and the tiger represent Malaysia. So, because we are historically linked,
Oh,
so
yes.
that is why, the coat of arms of Singapore, you have the lion and you have the tiger, to show
Ah,
that, we all are like brother countries. So you
I
have the
see.
two symbol, because for Malaysia, I think the tiger is part of a symbol for Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah, that's also probably true because when just now you mentioned that Singapore used to have a lot of tigers, right? Temasek had a lot of
Mm.
tigers. So it was
Mm.
probably all in the same area. Malaysia probably had a lot of tigers as well, and that's how we had
Yes.
our tigers. Yes. Oh, we have another question also. Uh, can we still find Sang Nila Utama's tomb now? You mentioned he was
Yes.
buried.
If you go, okay, now maybe you can ask your kids, right? You ask your parents this weekend to bring you to Fort Canning Hill. Okay, it's near near City Hall, so you can actually take the train to City Hall, or Dhoby Ghaut, and it's a short walk. So at Fort Canning Hill, you can see that there's tombs of the old kings. So maybe you can, if you want to see whether they exist, yes, they existed because,
Wow.
there were tombs. So it's, so you can, take a look if you don't believe the story. And you want to see the grave, so called the tomb, you can go and visit Fort Canning Hill. I think there's also some interesting historical artifacts there that, it'll be nice. So instead of staying at home and, go and like play computer games. Go and ask your parents, let's go to Fort Canning Hill because I want to see this Sang Nila Utama, whether or not he's buried there.
Actually, that is really, really exciting because I think most of us we would have heard this story of Sang Nila Utama. Like I heard it when I was in kindergarten, I think. So before I went to
Mm,
primary school, our teachers used to tell us, oh, there was this Malay king, Sang Nila Utama, and we all knew, how he threw his crown into the sea and then
mm,
how he saw a lion. And now when we are
yeah.
able to visit his tomb, then I think we can really see how Singapore's history comes alive to us. These people are
Yes.
real. Yes, and
Mm.
it's so nice also to
So
see.
yeah, so
Yes.
maybe if I could add, right? You know why he was very intrigued with Singapura, because you see, like even to come to this island, you have to go through all these challenges.
A
And the
lot of
fact that why,
triumphs.
yeah, and even the skipper, right, the nahoda said, throw away all these heavy things, so that the
Mm.
boat will not sink. So they threw all the through all the crates, whatever heavy things, to prevent the boat from sinking. But nothing happened until he threw away his crown. Why do you think that is?
Oh, that's
Why
also
only after he
so
threw away his
interesting.
crown, the sea calmed down? So something to think
Hmm.
about. So meaning, I mean, to me, I mean, this is how I interpret it. I mean, other people could think it otherwise, but I think that's why he said there's something magical about this island.
Mm.
Like this island, even though he's king, like, oh, so what if you're king? That doesn't mean you can do anything, right? That doesn't mean I'm not angry. All this thunder and lightning. So when he threw away his crown, so
Mm.
in a way, I mean, this is how I interpret the story to be. Like he is, he is humbling himself. Like
Yeah.
he was king. So he said, okay, never mind. I throw away my crown. So without the crown, nobody knows you're king, right? So I will
Yeah.
humble myself, and then okay, yes, yes, I will humble myself. So please, save us from drowning. So I think only after he threw away the crown, the sea actually calmed down. So the
Mm.
crown is not very heavy, right? The heavy boxes are, I mean, because they are heavier than the crown, but it didn't work. So that's
Yeah.
why he felt that this island, it was magical. It kind of like it want to protect, like, so what if you're king? You think you can anyhow come to my island? So I mean, that is my interpretation. So that's why he said, okay, okay,
Mm.
I want to become king on this island because it's like all this, like, when they say, right, you must struggle before you achieve success. Like, you kids, right, your mother make you do the practice paper, before exam. You must practice, you must cry, you must like, you must work very hard before you get your A. So it's the same thing as, like this Singapura. You think anyone can anyhow come here and become king? No. So must put you to a test. See whether you will still want to come to Singapore. I think if you look at all this adventure story, right? Whenever they have like storm, they have thunder, lightning, either they will move away, they won't hit towards their destination, or they will
Mm.
steer clear of the storm. This case, maybe the island wants to know whether he really wants to come to Singapore. So
I
maybe say,
think
okay, I'll
that's.
give you a test. So it could be a test, right? That
Mm.
is what I interpreted it to be. Like, Singapore is testing whether or not this king is really very sincere in wanting to come, and wanting to come to this island.
Mm. Well, then we are all very fortunate that we didn't have to be subjected to
Yeah.
a test before we were born
Yes, you
here,
see, yeah,
right?
you all
All
were
of us
born
who were born here
here.
in Singapore.
Yeah, you're born here. It is it's Singapore became Singapore. It's a unique country. Like, we have a very deep water harbor. We are protected, like, from
Mm.
the other bigger countries. So that's why other countries will get hit by earthquake and tsunami, but we are actually protected by these big countries. So in a way,
Mm.
this is a very special place. So aren't you lucky that you're in Singapore?
I think it's
And aren't
truly
you lucky that
magical.
Sang Nila Utama actually, like, okay, okay, throw my crown, so
Yeah.
that I can come. Yeah.
And then he
So like
came and
I think
settled
the
here.
yeah, the other lesson that we
Mm,
can learn from this story is, you have to, for kids, right? You have to, I mean, for all of us actually, you have to struggle, you have to overcome difficulties before you
mm,
achieve success. So can you imagine if Sang Nila Utama told Nahoda, okay, go back to where we come from. No need, all this, like we throw everything, or also, it won't come down. The
mm,
storm rage on and all that, but he did not. So he persevered, he tried his best. So you
yeah.
see, in everything in life, I think, of course, all of us face difficulties or challenges, but if you really want it so badly, you will work towards it, like, and you are
Mm,
willing to sacrifice, like he sacrificed his crown. Yeah.
yeah. It's true.
Mm.
You have faith that it will be worth it, and then you go through all the
Yes.
struggles, and in the end, you get a treasure that is yours and yours only.
Yes.
So for Sang Nila
Mm.
Utama, I can imagine that moment. You describe that moment when he stepped onto Temasek and he felt the sand, and it was so
Mm.
magical. And then he saw the lion. That is something that Sang Nila Utama worked for, and it was a
Mm.
moment that was magical for him. So I'm sure that all of
Yes.
us will also have magical moments in our life, just like how he discovered Temasek. And it's a good thing he discovered it because then we can be here today to talk about his story.
Yes, yeah, that's precisely it.
Mm-hmm. So maybe Hidayah, you can move on to the next story. So we have another
Okay.
story lined up for everyone, which is the attack of the Garfish. Hidayah, take it away.
Okay. So this is the third story in the book. It is called Attack of the Garfish. Okay, some of you may be familiar with, because you have been reading similar stories, but Singapore was attacked by swordfish and all that. So I just want to actually, I want to clarify that the actual fish is called garfish and not swordfish. Okay, it's very important for us to learn the correct type of fish, actually, because the swordfish is like a shark, so, and they only travel alone. But garfish, as you will see from the story, garfish are long, slender fish, and they live near the shoreline. Okay, so attack of the garfish. So before we start, these are some of the characters in the story that you will come across. So Maharaja, he was the king of Singapore, and he ruled Singapore. This is after Sang Nila Utama. Okay, this is the next king. Then we have Pembesar Raja. Pembesar Raja is one of the king's advisor. Okay, so he will always advise the king on certain issues, and the king will listen to him. Pembesar, there can be a few of these advisors in the royal court, and this is Hang Nadim. Like there was a story, right? I think Nurami asked how old was the boy. So I think he's referring to this boy. He was actually 7 years old. Okay, like your primary one. And in the Malay annals, his name was not mentioned. So in the Malay annal, he was called Budak. Budak means the boy. So, but again, like I said, throughout the years, when you tell the stories from one generation to another, they kept calling the boy, the boy, the boy. I do not know how the word Hang Nadim come to be, but he later became known as Hang Nadim. But it's still a 7-year-old boy. Okay, so are we ready to listen to Attack of the Garfish? Early one morning in Singapore, Nelayan, the fisherman, was walking to the beach. The breeze was cool and pleasing. It reminded him of when he used to fly his huge, colorful kite on windy days. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. His kite would sail in the sky for hours. Oh, how I miss those carefree days, he thought. The lion hung his fishing net casually over his shoulder, whistling while he walked. Suddenly, he heard people shrieking in terror. He saw some of his friends running towards the shore in great Toda! Garfish! The people shouted. The lion saw groups of garfish attacking the fishermen. This ferocious fish had long jaws and sharp teeth. The fish was seriously injuring the fishermen who were pushing their boats out to sea. The lion knew that garfish lived close to the shore, but he never knew that there were so many of them. Oh no! Could this be punishment for the recent killing of holy man Tunjana Khatib? The lion thought as he rushed frantically to save his friends. Tunjana Khatib had been a highly respected man with unbelievable magical powers. Watch me split this beetle palm tree in two, Tunjana Khatib had once said. Wham! Crash! Boom! He did just that by simply touching the trunk. His great powers, however, made people fear and distrust him. So one day, he was ambushed and killed. Before dying, Tun Janakatip vowed a terrible curse on the island. Let a disaster befall Singapore, he uttered before breathing his last. Help! Help! The sight and sounds of bleeding fishermen crying on the shore frightened the lion and brought him back to the present. Without a second to waste, he sprang into action. The lion threw his fishing net on the beach and ran to help the fishermen escape to land. Word got to Paduka Sri Maharaja, the king of Singapore, that the island was being attacked by slender animal enemies from the sea. Guards, prepare my elephant, said the king. The king rode his elephant to the beach anxiously. When the king reached the beach, he saw that the sand had been soaked red from the many dead bodies. The smell of so much blood made the lion throw up. The guard continued charging towards the shore, splashing wildly. We must stop the attack. Prepare a Bertis barricade, said the king. What is Bertis? You may be wondering. In the Malay language, Bertis can mean one of two things: a type of tree or the calves of your leg. Whether the king meant the tree or the calves is unclear. But what do you think? The king's men quickly lined up, using their muscular calves to ward off the crazed garfish attack. Unfortunately, the garfish continued stabbing the men to death. The remaining men on the beach feared for their lives. Ah, no! They howled in pain. Run! Save yourselves! Everyone seemed to be shouting. The king shouted angrily, Cursed are those cowards who ran away! A small voice then said to the king, Your Majesty, why not use banana trunks instead? The voice belonged to a boy who looked like he was 7 years old. The boy, known as Hang Nadim, had been watching from afar. It was not common for a king to receive advice from children. However, as the king was desperate to save Singapore, he agreed to try out Hang Nadin's suggestion. He instructed his men to cut down banana trunks and erect them side by side on the shoreline to form a fence. Whoosh! 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 The garfish launched wave after wave of attack. Only this time, their jaws got stuck onto the banana trunks. They could not escape. Go! Kill the enemies! Bellowed the king victoriously. Charging forward, the king's men killed the wriggling garfish. Singapore was finally safe. The king could not stop smiling. He thanked Hang Nadim for helping him stop the Garfish attack. He invited the boy to the palace. He wanted to give this young hero an award for his smart plan that had saved Singapore. Come to my palace tonight, the king said to Hang Nadim. Meanwhile, in the palace, Pembesar Raja, the king advisors, became jealous. Your Majesty, that child is very clever and popular with the people. He will be a threat to the throne when he grows up. The advisor whispered to the king. The king's eyes grew wider and wider as he listened to his advisor's words. Other palace officials also warned the king that the people of Singapore had already begun telling stories of how the king had been outsmarted by a child. Psst, did you hear how a boy was cleverer than the king? Really? How could that be? It is true. That boy taught the king what to do. Rumors flew everywhere on the tiny island called Singapore. The king's face turned red with anger. He stood up and shouted a single terrible command, disturbing the peace of the palace. Have Hang Nadim killed, ordered the king. Dressed in his finest clothes, Hang Nadim went to the palace to attend the award ceremony that had been organized in his honor. He was thinking of all the delicious food he would get to eat. Instead of being welcomed by palace officials, the guards dragged him away without a single word. Wait, what did I do? Please, where are you taking me? Hang Nadim screamed in terror. Hang Nadim struggled to escape, but the guards held him with all their might. Some people believe that Hang Nadim was stabbed many times by the palace guards and left to die. Others believe that Hang Nadim was put in a sack, chained and thrown into the river. Splash! Even today, when the wind sighs and the water laps, some people claim to hear chains clanking in the Singapore River. Whether or not you believe them, the story of Hang Nadim, a clever boy who saved Singapore from a Garfish attack, remains one of the favorite stories from the beloved Malay Annals.
Oh no! What
Yeah,
a
it's
sad
quite sad. I
story.
know.
Oh, I'm sure everyone who is hearing this, your hearts will go out to Hang Nadim. And now we have come to our Q&A session as well. So if you have any questions about this story, you can just post in the comments. But right now we have some questions that we can address. The first is, I read the book on Attack of the Swordfish. Is it the same fish? What's the
Okay.
difference between a garfish and a swordfish?
You see, when I was growing up, right, I also read this book, about Attack of the Swordfish. So I grew up like thinking, oh, this swordfish.
Yeah,
So
me
when
too.
so when I started writing children's book, and I wrote Hang Nadim and the swordfish. That was the title, and then suddenly, one of my friends said, "Hey, maybe you check the scientific word for swordfish. Are you sure it's swordfish?" Like then I began to, because my friend told me better check whether, it is the right fish. Uh, and then when I check, and then I realized that, all these years we grew up think, thinking of the wrong fish. So actually, swordfish is wrong. So swordfish is, like I said in the beginning, a swordfish is like a shark. It's bigger
Hmm.
and has it's the body weight is so much bigger, and swordfish, they always travel alone, like the shark. They
Hmm.
don't come like in with your other fish friends, right?
Friends.
So how can no and this attack happened at the shoreline, so how can this big fish go and attack you, at the shoreline on the beach.
Mm.
So so and then later on, when I actually went to look at, you see, in the Malay movies, the old Malay movies, there is this story about Singapura dilanggar todak. That means Singapura was attacked by Garfish. So the
Mm.
word todak, and they showed the todak to be long, slender fish, and it makes sense because
Mm.
this Garfish looks like that, and there's a
Mm.
lot of this. So later on, when I was doing research, right, because before you write, you must make sure your facts are accurate. So I
Uh-huh. Mm.
actually so I think that time, like, my brother and my cousins, they went to the beach, and then they actually saw schools of garfish, and they took a video,
Really?
and then, yes, they took a photo, and then they quickly sent to me and said, hey, this is your garfish, this is your
Yoga
toda.
fish.
Yeah, and then I look. Oh my goodness! So these are real, garfish do exist. So so my family members, they went to the East Coast beach, and they saw, if you were to go to the East Coast beach, near the long jetty, if you were to look quite near, you look down. In the water, you can see the garfish, the long slender fish. So basically, yes,
Wow.
it is. The Malay word is the same, toda, but I think it was, swordfish is the wrong name. So I hope in future, you all will use the right name. It is garfish or needlefish because they are long and slender. That's why they can
Ah,
jump. They can jump and attack.
okay,
The
okay.
swordfish is very big. How can the swordfish jump like the shark and attack
I don't
you?
think
So,
so. Yeah.
yeah, so because of this,
They will
I
talk.
started correcting. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
started correcting it. So I name it, Attack of the Garfish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do
So
garfish also
so
have very sharp teeth? Like how do
yes.
they attack?
So if you look, there's long, like in the picture here, it's very slim, and the bill is very sharp. So when
Ah.
they fly, because they are light, right? They sprung
Oh.
to you. They can
Mm.
actually hit you on, and then they will jump back into the water.
Oh, like an arrow. It's like you
Yes,
fly
yeah.
and
Yeah,
hit.
you see, is the arrow fat? No, right? The arrow is not big and fat, right? The arrow is long and slim. So
Ah.
that is why I think, because of, when I write this book, I think
Mm.
as authors, as writers, we try to write and check our facts accurately.
Yes.
So, yeah, so when I realized that, and then, somebody said, wow, Hidayah, you will be very unpopular, because you go and you change the word, swordfish to garfish. No, 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 but this is the correct fish. We must learn the correct
Mm.
things. So that's why, if you notice, it is garfish in our story and not swordfish. But they are
Mm.
basically the same story. But the description of the
Mm.
fish is wrong.
Ah, I
Yeah.
see. So yes,
Mm.
it's true. I think it's very good and very important that we get our facts right as much as possible. And
Yep.
it'll be very good that all the children who read your book from now on will know that it was a garfish and not a swordfish. And all of us
Yes.
slightly older ones will have to correct our mental
Yeah. See, I
that
also
oh
feel very
it's
cheated,
wrong.
when I read like swordfish. I was like, oh, this is the wrong fish. How dare they?
Ah, well, but
Yeah,
it's
but
very
then,
good that we try to remember our
mistakes.
history. Mm,
Yes, mistakes happen, but it also is up to us to correct it. So when you have the
mm,
chance, yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And now we look at more questions that are coming in. Ihong asks, will there be a part two or continuation to this story? So is there
Meaning
any
continuation
continuation?
for the series, or for the
Or
story.
do we know what happened after Hang Nadim died? Or is that lost
No,
to
we
history?
yeah, we
That's
do
lost
not.
to history. Oh well,
Yeah.
but I think
So
to
maybe
us to
maybe
have
here,
ah
continuation to this story. No, there isn't, because he died, and that's it. But
and
there's
then who
many
changed slightly?
yeah, there's many stories. Okay, in this book there are 6 stories. Okay, So if you're asking whether you have book 2, book 3, then this one we can consider. But for this, each stories is contained. That means there's no continuation to each of the
Ah,
story. Yeah.
standalone stories.
Yes,
So
standalone
you can read
stories.
one a day.
You can read all in one day. Even in 2 hours also you can finish reading. So
Wow. Okay, we have other questions.
hmm.
Do you know, Chris asks, do you know where the location of the Garfish attack was, the exact location?
Okay,
In other
the
words, I'm
exact
thinking, do we still need to look out for Garfish?
Oh, you can go to East Coast Beach to load. No, they will not attack you. Okay, they will not attack you. But again, if you listen to the story, the reason for this Garfish attack was it was
Hmm.
like a curse. Remember, there's this holy man, Tun
Yeah.
Janakatip. He was
Hmm.
so called. He was wrongfully killed, and before he died, he said, he put a curse. He said, disaster will befall Singapore, and then you
Yeah.
have all this Garfish attack.
So the curse
But
came
normally,
true.
yeah, so normally Garfish they don't attack you. If not, my brother and my cousins all got attacked
Yeah.
when they went to East Coast Beach. So the fact that they
Hmm.
can actually, there are some fishermen, who caught the Garfish.
Oh,
You can actually eat the
you
fish.
can
Yeah.
eat Garfish?
Yes. Yeah. You can eat Garfish.
Oh, wow.
It's like any other fish. Yeah. So
Hmm.
they don't attack you, but the attack was because of this curse that somebody was wrongfully accused
Hmm.
of a crime. Then before he died, he said, okay, a disaster will befall Singapore, and then you have the Garfish attack. Okay, where is this place? The location of the attack, it was believed to be at Tanjong Pagar. You know where
Tanjong
Tanjong Pagar is?
Pagar? Yeah,
Yes.
near town.
Yeah, Tanjong Pagar. Yes, Tanjong Pagar. You see, near Tanjong Pagar also you have the Keppel Harbour, and
Yeah.
it's also near the shoreline. Okay, the word Tanjong and Pagar. Tanjong means cape, Cape, cape.
Uh-huh.
Pagar means stake, stake. You have the Stakes, stakes.
Mm-mm. A bit
So
like poles with sharp
yeah, like
ends.
poles, yeah.
Yeah.
So the reason why Tanjong Pagar is called Tanjong Pagar was perhaps because that was where they erect all the banana trunks as
Oh.
barricade, as stakes.
Mm. Mm.
So
To
that's
keep
why
the
it's called
Garfish
Cape
out.
of Stakes. Yeah.
Ah, I
So
see.
sometimes when you go around Singapore and you look at the names. Some of the names have whole history. They tell you stories,
Mm.
like Tanjong Pagar. So now you can identify it with, this is where the Garfish attack
Mm.
Singapore.
Mm.
That's why the name is called Tanjong Pagar. Even like where I was born and grew up in Kampong Glam, the reason why it's called Glam was because there's a lot of plants. This tree called Glam tree. So you
Oh,
see,
I see.
every neighborhood have all these interesting stories.
Ah, it's like
Uh,
little secrets that you need to
yeah,
unlock.
little secret. So that's why you need to go and find out. Like so,
Ah.
like where I'm staying now, right? I'm staying near East Coast, around Bedok. Why is it Bedok? Why is it called Bedok? So there's actually interesting stories. So yeah, you can. That's the beauty of stories. You
Mm.
can tell you a little bit about your past also.
Mm-hmm. We
Mm.
look into history and then we can
Yeah.
uncover all these little secrets about
Yeah,
our
we can
modern
also
citizens.
learn from
Yeah,
history. Like, I think there's like some other comment about
yeah.
um
So the next question comes from Huyen, and I think she's asking the question that all of us are thinking. Why must the king kill a small kid? Why must the
I
king kill
kn-
Hang Nadim?
I know, so horrible, right? I also hate it. I mean,
Yeah.
like, so cruel. Okay, you you see, you have to understand, if you're king, right? Some people, when they have power, they want to stay in power, they want to stay in control. So they don't
Mm,
like people to overtake them or to be a threat to them. So I think in
mhm.
this case, because the advice came from a small boy. No,
Ah,
initially the king was okay. The king thanked him. The king wanted to reward him, and invited him to
mm,
the istana, the palace. Okay, and the king had no bad intention. But later on, you have all this people, who whisper all these evil things and say, this small boy, he will later to overthrow you from your
oh,
position. He's
mm,
really a small boy, but he's so clever. Now you're not clever anymore. Like you can't even think of a proper solution, but this boy can.
mm,
Like
mm,
so they whisper all these malicious things, and of course maybe during that time, he felt threatened, and he didn't think through, and then he just said, okay, kill this boy. So, which
mm,
also, and a lot, if you read from the Sejarah Melayu, there were some very bad kings. There
mm,
were some very good kings, and but there were equally bad kings. I
mm,
think what we can learn from this story is, and what the Sejarah Melayu is trying to tell us is that just because you are older doesn't mean you are wiser. Sometimes
mm,
a younger person has better ideas.
mm.
So in a way, this is trying to tell us that sometimes as parents you think, well, well, we are right. We eat, there's this proverb say, I eat the salt longer than you.
Yeah.
That I know more because I live longer. But that's not true, isn't it? In this case, is the boy who was only 7 years old, who had this good idea. So
Mm,
instead of embracing it, but the king, like, oh, I'm a king, I don't want to feel, malu or shameful. Okay, go and kill. I want to show my power. But that
mm.
shouldn't be the situation. I think so.
Yeah.
What the lesson that we can learn from this story is, there are actually two lessons, if I could interpret it. One is that just because you're older doesn't mean you're wiser or you're more knowledgeable. We are not
Mm,
good in everything. Sometimes our children, sometimes the younger generation, they they may have ideas that we may not even think of.
yeah.
So that doesn't mean you totally reject them, or you totally
Mm,
don't listen to them. That's number one. So, and number two, I think you shouldn't listen to fake news. Which is very relevant, right? You see, even in the
yeah.
Sejarah Melayu, you have all this fake news. So all this, like all the courtiers, the king advisor, they go and tell the king all this fake news, like, this boy got intention to overthrow you, he did this, but instead of go and checking, he just immediately believed them. You see, this is the
Mm,
problem in our, if we reflect, right? The reason for all these stories that we should read and understand is to learn from the lesson. Even during in the olden days, there are all this fake news, right?
yeah.
All this gossip. But what what we need to do is, okay, people can say, like, even on social media, people can post something, like, Sir Anna, she's very horrible. She did it. She
Oh,
said that, she said you
oh,
go and steal you stole her
yeah.
boyfriend. And then you get very angry, and then you attack her. Is it true in the first
Oh,
place? So
I'll be like
what
Hang
you
Nadim.
I mean, even now, right, you can see so many young people, they commit suicide. They committed suicide just because they cannot take all the bullying online,
Mm,
or,
mm,
like Hang Nadim, and they die. You
mm,
see, so the lesson here is, number one. I mean, of course, there's the second lesson is not to listen to fake news, not to listen to rumors. You should
mm,
investigate, right? Like, suddenly if
mm.
I, like, oh, this Sir Anne go and, she actually stole your boyfriend, or blah blah blah. So instead of go and attack you, I should talk to you, right? And say, is it true?
Yeah,
Is it like,
right. We should talk.
so yeah, you should
Mm,
investigate and not believe everything. That this is also about, I mean, like this, all this fake news, misinformation. Do not
mm,
believe everything that is being told to you. So you need
mm,
to go and find out more. Don't
Mm.
overreact, like you get angry, wow, kill the person. I think now, right, if you do that, you go to jail, okay? Whether you king or not, you will, like,
Mm.
you go to jail. So before anything, this poor boy did not do anything to you. He actually helped you save the country. So should, instead of rewarding, instead of being kind to the one, you go and kill him. So I think
Mm.
that's the second lesson. So kids, okay, I know you're listening to this. I'm not your mother, so you can listen to me. Please do not. I know some of you don't listen to your mothers, right? But you can listen to me because I'm not your mother. You don't listen to fake news. If people tell you something, you go and check, verify. Is it correct? Is it not? You use your brain to see whether or not it's fake news. Is it true? You that is then, so that you don't do very harsh things. Yeah,
Mm.
you don't commit,
Yeah.
like, you don't kill someone, or you don't cause the person commit suicide. You don't do bad things. So you must
Mm.
always check. You must always check, verify. Especially in this era of social media, is very very dangerous because
Mm.
words can be misconstrued. People
Yeah.
can, you get very sensitive. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we can take from this story is to be open to listen to the opinions of others around us, even if they may be younger or more inexperienced than us. It doesn't matter because whoever has a good idea, that person is a hero and we should work together. And the next is
Mm.
do not let fear overtake you and then end up listening to fake news and making you do something that you regret in the future. So that is a really
Yes.
good lesson that you can learn from this sad story of the attack of the garfish. And maybe just
Yeah.
to wrap up quickly, we have the last question from Ruth. Ruth asks, is this story the same as the other well known story about how Red Hill got its name? So are they the same story?
Um, Okay, again, like I said, they are, when stories are being told from one generation to another, right? They are a variety. So in the Sejarah Melayu, it is about Hang Nadim, being killed and then thrown in the Singapore River. But I think in this story, it was said that he was stabbed and killed on Red Hill, and the
Oh,
blood, the blood kind of soaked the heel. That's why it's called Red
Red
Heel, because of the
Hill.
blood. I mean, it
Oh,
is the same story, but there's slight variation. Like,
the
one is
ending is
thrown in the
different.
Singapore River. Yes. No,
Hmm.
they were all killed, but I think for
Yeah.
the Red Hill story, the blood was spilled, and then that's why the heel became red. That's why it's
Oh.
called Red Hill. Yeah, I mean, it is basically the same boy. In the end, also he got
Mm,
killed. Yeah, but it's
mm,
just
mm.
a variety. Like, again, when you tell stories, then there will be some variation.
Yeah.
Maybe the
Mm,
people telling the story, they live in Singapore, and and people who don't live in Singapore, they tend to think, oh, they throw in the Singapore River. But the people who
mm,
tells the story from Singapore will probably say, oh, but no, he was killed on this red hill. That's why the hill became red.
mm,
But
mm.
but both are not. We cannot say which is wrong, which is right. They are both the
Yeah.
same story. It's just, a
Ah.
little bit of additional
Mm.
uh yeah, additional, points.
So the different places in Singapore are bound by the
Yeah,
same
yes,
story. We have
yes.
the Tanjong
Mm,
Pagar, and then we have Singapore River, and then we have the Red
yeah,
Hill. So that's
yes,
how our history connects different places in our country. Well, thanks,
yeah. And
Hidayah.
then now
I
you
didn't
know.
know that they were related. Yeah.
Then you know why, how Singapura got its name also.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, there's
That's
always all these beautiful stories that we
mhm.
can learn from.
Yeah, and it's really good that we could put everything into one book. We can learn from the Malay Annals, and even now in a story that we can read, even now in our modern day, and with pictures to help you understand how our history came about. So that's our stories for tonight. Our two stories: how Singapura got its name, and Attack of the Garfish. So our 1 hour of storytelling has flown by so quickly, really, really, very quickly. And Hidayah and I are so glad that you could join us tonight. If you enjoyed the stories that you have heard today, why not discover more? 2 sets of the Pop Lit for Kids series are available in an exclusive bundle of 10 books, which also includes the Malay Annals from which you heard tonight. With famous tales from all over the world, they will not only provide you hours of happy reading, but also increase your awareness of different cultures and histories, just like we did tonight. So if you would like to find out more, you can scan the QR code that's on the screen. So once again, thank you very much for spending your evening with us, and we wish all of you and your families a good night. Thank you and stay
Buy the
safe, everyone.
book. Yeah, buy the book.
Yes,
There's
buy
more
the book.
interesting stories inside. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.